Hi, everybody. This is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms. And since we're all kind of accidental homeschoolers this week, I decided that every morning at around 9 a.m. I would come do a Facebook Live and talk about a different topic related to what we're all dealing with since, we're on kind of week 2 of spring break and our kids are at home and we're wondering how could we take care of their educational needs while they're at home. And the special topic that I wanted to cover today is special education. So as I've mentioned before, I have 2 kids. My son Nicholas is 12 and he is on the autism spectrum. And then our daughter Annika is neurotypical, but part of what led to the creation of San Antonio Charter Moms was my struggle to find a school setting where I felt like Nicholas could be included and challenged, and where I felt confident that people had high expectations for him and that he could have a brighter future. He could have teachers who are role models for him. He could have peers to interact with and develop his social skills. And then that has come to a grinding halt now. And as his mom, I'm worried about how do we make sure that he still makes progress? How do we not regress? I don't really have a good answer to that. I'm stressed out about it. Now, I do realize that there are many, many types of special needs and that we are by no means the most challenged. Nicholas normally participates in a regular classroom. He does get support like help with note taking, or sometimes there's a push-in. There's just a wonderful team of aides and teachers and we have this great support network at school, and I don't really know how that's going to translate to online learning. And that's, I think a lot of people are asking me that. We're getting messages about it, getting questions, and so I guess like this week some schools, like some private schools and Basis and some places have already ramped up providing online school for families who are staying home to practice social distancing. And but then that's also raising questions about like what if a school is providing educational services online, are they also obligated to follow a student's IEP? So thankfully we have guidance from the old TEA, Texas Education Agency. And I can drop a link to this in the comments, or if you can't find the link, just PM me at SA Charter Moms or at Inga Cotton on Facebook, or I'll put it in the discussion group. So if you're not already a member, please join the San Antonio Charter Moms discussion group on Facebook, because we have information about school closures. There was a big update yesterday. A lot of schools extended their how long they'll be closed. A lot of schools are making their plans for distance learning. And then we also have a thread of online resources to help make this like homeschool experience better. Online PE and lots of like free curriculum, like Youth Code Jam now has coding classes online, and lots of children's authors doing story times, and just cooking classes, all kinds of things. So I mean the community is really coming together to help solve this problem. But so yes, please join the discussion group. But for today, we're going to talk more about, how does it work if you're a family, if you have a child who's been getting special education services in school, and now all the schools are closed, and we're on right now we're kind of on spring break, and if, according to the TEA, if the school is closed, like they're not offering educational services to anyone, then those days don't count towards the timelines. And if they're not educating any students, then they don't have to provide special education services. But as soon as they start offering educational services to any students, then they are also obligated to provide the FAPE, free appropriate public education, to the special education students as well. So that raises some questions, right? Like, so if so one of the things they talk about is like, right, so if you have a special ed student and they're on an IEP, the IEP sets out, these are what supports they're getting in the classroom. This is what's supposed to happen. So the question is does the school have to carry that over into the online learning The simple answer is yes. There's nothing legally that says, well, if there's a disaster or if there's an emergency, then they don't have to follow FAPE. Nope, it still applies. So now just I take off my lawyer hat and just put on my human being hat. From what I know from the administrators and the teachers that I know, they are working really hard, and they really do care about trying to help every student. And they're stressing out about this because they know there are students who don't have internet at home or don't have computers at home, or they were counting on school to provide their meals during this, right? So just we all need to treat each other with grace. But that doesn't mean that as a special ed parent, you should let go of advocating for your kid, right? So I've been that mom. I've been the problem. If your kid is not getting what they need, be that mom. Speak up for what they need. But these are strange times, and the folks that I know who work at schools, they are working as hard as they can, and this is very new and very stressful for them. And some of them have their own challenges to deal with, right? Some of them are themselves in a high-risk group or immunocompromised. Some of them have aging relatives. Some of them are also caring for their children at home while trying to prepare distance lessons for their students. So just as much as possible, give each other grace. Okay, so putting my kind of lawyer hat back on, as we talk about all the, what does TEA say? So if they're offering education to any students, schools also have to offer special education services. So basically the ARD meeting is going to have to get together, maybe by teleconference, right? Have an ARD meeting by teleconference if we can't meet face to face, and figure out how those accommodations would apply to the virtual learning environment, right? So if that means extra time, how things are graded, the one thing that doesn't fix is the fact that if you're the parent and you're not someone who's trained to do special education, that's expecting a lot from a parent. And I know from my own homeschooling experience, I was not able to get my son to attempt handwriting. I just, in first grade, I just gave up, basically. If we needed for our writing goals or whatever, I just let him type. And thankfully, when he got to second grade and he got in school, he had an amazing teacher who actually also had experience as a physical therapist, and he made incredible progress. And so within 6 months, he went from refusing to do handwriting to doing manuscript and then doing cursive. So there's hope, but I don't want anyone to have to deal with the kind of stress that. Actually, that's sort of side note. If during your homeschool experience, you find that something is just too hard, it's okay to say, you know what, we've got a gap here. We're just not going to do handwriting. And it's better to have a good relationship with your kids, right? And it's better to keep your sanity and focus on the wins, right? So if you're doing a good job with science projects and you're reading a book for 60 minutes a day and you did a cooking project together, then I think you get a gold star, even if you didn't do math facts or you didn't do handwriting, because for everything there's a season, and the time will come when you can revisit that, right? So we just need to get through this together and keep our sanity intact, hopefully. Okay, so some other key points from this guidance from the TEA. So what if your child is supposed to get speech therapy or some other services when they're at school? The school is still supposed to offer those. So then the question is it something that they could offer virtually? Is it something that they could offer by teleconference or video conference? And can they still maintain privacy and respect the students' FERPA rights while doing that? This is something that we're all going to have to figure out. Another question is, okay, so if it's something that can't be done virtually, then how do we do it face-to-face? And so it sounds like what they're envisioning is there will be some kind of transportation system that maybe brings those students to clusters, and then those services are provided they're going to have to keep the group small, and they're going to have to keep that environment really clean. And I think that does pose a challenge for, how do they keep staff safe? How do they keep students safe? I don't really know what the answer is. Again, just try to treat each other with grace and try to communicate. And it's something that the ARD committee is going to have to deal with. So one thing that comes up over and over again in this memo is basically that keep track of what your student needs and is not getting, so that when things go back to some kind of normal, then the ARD committee can figure out in detail what kind of compensatory services the student needs. Kind of like I was talking about, like as a homeschooler, I knew that I whiffed it on handwriting. I admit it. It just wasn't worth the battle. Which means my son went back to school, or when he came to school in second grade, he was really behind on that. And thankfully we had a teacher who worked extra hard to get him caught up. But that's the kind of thing that an ARD committee can document and say, my concern for my son is that we've been working for years to help him function well in a classroom, right? Like to be paying attention, like what is the teacher saying? What are my peers saying? What is the topic of discussion, right? They do a lot of seminaring, right? It's a Socratic process. That's really a challenge for a kid who has struggles to pick up on social cues, right? And to process language in real time. So we've worked really hard on that, and I don't want him to lose ground on that. So when eventually he does go back in the classroom, I hope he's able to like pick those skills up again. But I don't know how we simulate like a Socratic seminar virtually. I don't know, like do we do some kind of Zoom call? I don't know, like but because there's normally like 20 kids at least, and they're all they all have their dog-eared books with notes in the margin, and I don't know. So anyway, if you've got ideas, let me know. Maybe I think maybe just my son and I, or just in our family, we might have like a family book club, right? And try to keep those skills up. I really don't know. He's pretty happy to just do social distancing. Honestly, all of us in my family are kind of introverts, and that has a silver lining for us. But we love our people. We miss our play dates, and as I mentioned yesterday, like back when I homeschooled my son, we had all these memberships at museums that we could go to, and the museums are closed. So so we're even us introverts are having to adapt to a different life. So anyway, I hope that this gives you some ideas about if you also have a child with special education needs, what footing the schools are on, how to address that. If you're like a teacher or administrator, I hope you're being mindful of the special ed kids. One thing I'm seeing in some other states, schools are just staying closed longer because they're afraid of offering unequal education to the special ed kids versus the typical kids. And my advice is don't just close everything down. Like we all need to try. I realize that this may open up gaps because we live in an unequal society, and that there are people who have less technology or just have kids who are at home who have special needs, and their parents it's going to be harder for them to keep up and provide the support that they need because school personnel aren't there. But don't quit. If we all just keep trying, we'll do our best under these weird circumstances, and then when things do go back to some kind of normal where we can meet in groups larger than 10, hopefully we can find ways to get students caught up, and we can take what we've learned from this, right? We may come through this with a better understanding about how online learning works, or how to provide services virtually. So maybe we can learn from this, right? And maybe we can show what kind of people we are and how we try to take care of each other as a community. So those are my thoughts. This is Charter Moms Chat for Wednesday, March 18th. And, please follow the page, join the discussion group. Let me know what kind of questions you have. I'll be back online around 9 a.m. tomorrow. All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye.